What is going on, everybody? Bobby Fire with my guy, Eric Sheetshaber. We're going to be talking through today's massive NFL. Well, it's not even massive. It's only 10 games, but today's big NFL slate, the main slate, 10 games on DraftKings, 11 games on FanDuel. We're going to be going through it. I'm pumped also because I got my Dodgers starting the NLCS against the Mets tonight, which would be a lot of fun. And Sheets, we may have our dates. Yeah,
it could be. It could be.
It's the closest it's been.
I told Stacy she's got to get her freaking knee in order here because we got World Series possibilities.
We got business to get. Yeah, business to.
And I told my DraftKings host that he better be rooting against the Yankees and the Dodgers because otherwise he's going to have a problem.
I tried to give my host last week. We had a blast on Friday. It was so many of us, and it was just like an unbelievable. It felt like a World Series type of a game, just with the history with the Padres recently, and really, really fun. Really happy for the Dodgers and looking forward to tonight. But we got football to talk about. We'll go position by position. But Sheets, why don't we start off with what you're sort of thinking? I guess we usually talk about what we're playing. I guess maybe that's something. But what do you think we should start off with before we get into positions?
I don't know. Again, I was hoping Rody be here so you can have a 30-second delay here as I'm running my stuff here.
Okay, you do your thing. You do your thing.
No, but it's fine. I guess my first question I have is how much of Bucky Irving are you playing? I guess.
Yeah, so I've got a good amount of Bucky Irving. I like Bucky Irving anyway, so it's the fact that he's starting. I mean, he's right now tied for my second highest owned running back.
Second highest, huh? I thought that people would pay literally 100% of him or something.
Well, there's just a lot of good options.
Okay.
They dropped I like to spend ups with Henry and Barkley. I like Bijan today at this price. I like Eckler as a run back in that Washington game. I like Pollard. Najee Harris is showing up again. I think Antonio Gibson's kind of a good pivot from that. I like Josh Jacobs. I like Chuba Hubbard a little bit. So there's a lot of guys to go through, and I think that's sort of why I don't really feel the need to go, okay, well, I'm just going to commit all in on Bucky. I also think that game is a little interesting. I think there's ways to play it, and people are going to play some of it. But I'm not buying. I thought you were going to start off with the Rattler. I think Rattler is going to be significantly higher owned than at least Saberson has him. You can see right here, you and Goldie both have him. Basically double what they do. I think he's going to be close to 10%. And you'll be happy to hear. We'll get into it as we go by positions. But I did fall for your Tennessee stuff, so I'm in on that stuff as well.
Did you fall for my Drake May stuff though?
I have one Drake May build, and I have 4 on FanDuel. So I'm at $15, but not as much. But I think it's totally reasonable. Let's put it that way. So I guess with all that said, I'm playing like 100 in the $15 on FanDuel. I'm playing 75 in the $25 and the $20, excuse me, on DraftKings. I'm also playing all the 150s, the single entry, high stakes, whatever, the $100, $200 single entry stuff. And then I'm playing 4 in the 555s today. I'm sort of hammering when I feel like there's a good spot. I kind of want to go a little bigger, and I really think that I'm going to be just way overexposed to one game, and that's going to be a lot of what I do today.
And you're still doing with the Baltimore game?
Yeah, and the Baltimore game and the Dallas game are sort of eat up a good portion of my ownership. On FanDuel, I actually got to more Dallas than I did to anybody else. That's just where it ended up. But
how much Houston are you getting?
None.
Wow.
I have Tank Dell as a play a lot as a one-off. He's in one of my biggest buy-ins. But that's pretty much, I don't know. It's not my thing. So we can go through it. We'll go position by position and talk about what we think makes sense, and then sort of finish up with some other stuff here. Starting at quarterback, and I guess the big question, and that's what I was sort of getting into, is that what are you doing with Spencer Rattler?
Well, I'm going to actually what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing 60 lineups of the 150, just like the regular way I play, just like doing my Sims, cutting down my stacks that don't make sense or whatever it is. And then what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be playing 90, where I play 30 lineups as 20% exposure to the Saints, to the Patriots, and to the Titans. So I'm going to be getting Rattler by force anyway. So I'm probably going to end up having to pare him back a little bit, So I'm going to have 20% of him, and I'm going to have him stacked just like he was any other quarterback. And we'll just kind of, and again, it's not going to, I might end up more if my actual builds get there. But the good news is Bobby, is that right now I'm not getting that much of him organically. Like if I were like I ran like 150 just now using the Sims and using everything, I'm getting like 6%. Like
Right.
right. So I'm not really getting too much. The two guys I'm getting the most of are Dak Prescott and Jordan Love, actually.
Mhm.
Those are the two I'm getting the most of. And then the next three I'd be getting would be CJ Stroud, Jaden Daniels, and Lamar. So both guys from that Washington Baltimore game. And then then I'm down to Rattler and pretty much everybody else. But those are my top owned are according to the way I play right now would be Prescott and Love, followed by CJ Daniels and then Lamar. But I'm going to be forcing in again the New England and the Tennessee just for funsies, and that's that.
Yeah, I get that. I'm looking at my exposure. I have 25% Lamar. I'm pretty targeted on these games. 25% Lamar, 17% Dak, 15% Jaden Daniels, and then I have Rattler and Levis at 10%, and then a couple other few 3, 4, 5%ers. But those are pretty much my main quarterbacks. I don't love, like, I actually think Rattler has some talent and there's some upside rushing too. But the thing that worries me is, like, is it wrong that we're playing Rattler over Levis, for example? Is that 800 that worth that much? Because I do think Levis with a bye against Indianapolis, who plays fast, could be a really good play, and you have really cheap pieces to pair him with. Whereas with Rattler, the issue you run into is, do you want to just play? I think that the right thing is probably just play him either naked or with Olave alone. I don't really see, or Shaheed, I guess, but I don't want to play him with Shaheed and Olave and expect him to just air it out all over the place.
You could play him with Kamara.
You could play him with Kamara, who I don't love, by the way. Today, I'm way under the field on him. I say this every week. You don't play. This is a different situation because Kamara is going to be like the option 1-1-1-1-1, for them. But it's Tampa Bay. You just don't run the ball on them. It just doesn't happen. As long as Vita Vea is there, they just don't give up the rushing. So I am way lower on Kamara than the field is. I would just much rather play the Derrick Henry or Saquon personally. But look, there could be that 5 touchdown game incoming for Kamara that just blows everybody out of the water. So had to get a little bit of it. All right, so the running back is what's interesting because I think that we ended up with a lot of value plays, as you mentioned, Bucky Irving being the biggest one. And I actually think he'll probably be in higher buy-ins, closer to 50% than he is going to be to 30. And, you've got the Pollard, the Dobbins, and Bijan are all affordable. I like Antonio Gibson a little bit. Javonte Williams. You got a lot of cheap guys, which I think leaves Henry and Saquon significantly lower owned. So that's what I'm doing. I do have Bijan, Bucky, Henry, and Barkley all over 30%. Those are my favorite guys. And again, I'm going to be 20 some odd percent on Eckler, who's not projecting as well and not going to be as owned. But I love him in that game environment with no Brian Robinson. So those are my running backs. Who are you looking at right now?
Yeah, I have Bucky Irving right now about 45%, which is probably right about the field. Mm-hmm. And then I'm have 30% of the Antonio Gibson from the Patriots. He's going to get the work and probably get a game script for coming out of the backfield too. So I like that a lot. And then I'm going to have the usual decision of whether to play Najee Harris or not, because I'm getting to him, like I said, about 23% right now. Right now, I am getting a bunch of that. Chuba Hubbard, Bijan Robinson, and those are my top owned guys. The guys I mentioned. So Bucky, Gibson. I'm not getting to the pay up stuff. So that's where we're a little bit different.
So you're going to be spending at receiver. It sounds like a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to take some thin shots at like guys like Trey Tucker at receiver, which we'll get to in a minute. But did want to touch on just the Najee thing. I understood why he was so popular last week, especially on FanDuel. And obviously it's painful because I could have made the swap and et cetera, et cetera. But I don't understand it today. With Jaylen Warren back, I genuinely don't understand. And you know what? It's come down, to be honest, his ownership. Early in the week, we were looking at Najee Harris at like 40% ownership. But then you got the Bucky Irving thing. And I just think, look, if he gets there this week, it's the good matchup with the Raiders. But there's no reason it couldn't be Jaylen Warren just as likely as Najee Harris to me. So I am well below on Najee. I'm well below, as I mentioned, on Kamara, looking at the ownerships here. I'm pretty much ahead on most of the other guys because those are two big ones. I'm below on Hubbard, even though I have a decent amount of him. I'm below on Javonte. Well, no, I'm actually right near the field on Javonte Williams, below on Harris. And then I'm also playing both Detroit guys in some of my Dallas stacks. Not both together, but some Gibbs and some Montgomery who are just getting completely forgotten about. And then again, it goes to stacks. I like Josh Jacobs a little more than most. He's a great pivot off of Bijan Robinson. So I'll probably be about 15% on Jacobs, which may be about double the field. And James Conner in your Green Bay stacks. That's my other one that I think makes some sense. All right. So at receiver, now I'm guessing yours is going to be different than mine because you are clearly spending up more based on your running back exposure. So who do you have the most of at wide receiver?
So again, unfortunately, I'm gonna be overweight on those New England guys. The Polk and the Demario Douglas, just I'm forcing him in. And I'm going to be overweight on the Saints guys because I'm forcing them in, and I'm going to be overweight on the Tennessee guys, Hopkins and Ridley, because I'm forcing them in. But aside from that, it looks as though, wow, I'm getting a bunch of Diggs, Tank Dell. I'm getting Zay Flowers in these Baltimore stacks.
I love Zay Flowers today, so I'm in on that.
Yeah. I'm gonna get Jaden Reed obviously in my Packer stacks. But what's gonna end up happening, Bobby, is that when I build these other ones with the real cheapos, and I was looking at that when I was experimenting with it Wednesday, I end up with like Drake May with like Demario Douglas, and then I end up with like CeeDee Lamb. You know what I mean? So even though I'm not really paying down for running back, I'm paying down sort of for receiver at the first spot. So I can end up getting like high price receivers at the second spot. So the majority of that is probably going to come from those those stupid stacks that I'm making. But other guys are showing up, Trey Tucker, Tank Dell, I mentioned. Cortland Sutton again. We talked about this earlier in the week. I mean, I imagine his ownership's got to have come down a little bit. Remember, we thought it was going to be really popular at the beginning of the week.
Yeah, it fell off. You're right.
But the Jaden Reed and the Packers stuff. I mean, you could really do stuff against the Arizona defense. So I think all those Packers guys make sense. But the problem is, like we said, they're all active, so it's going to be tough. But yeah, that's pretty much what I got. But boy, I'm surprised I'm getting all this Zay Flowers, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that this narrative is really just that. It's just a made-up narrative about Lamar not having a receiver. I was wrong. He had 12 targets last week, by the way. He's had three games, 3 out of the 5 games this year, and one was a blowout that he didn't get 10 plus targets. But 10 plus targets, and his targets are excellent targets. You know what I mean? Like they're down. He gets some short ones too, but he gets a lot of down the field work. And I think he makes for perfectly in a great game environment. I think you really want to get overweight on Zay. So I'm with that. Terry McLaurin is my highest owned receiver. And I feel interesting about it because he hasn't really, even with their offense humming, it's not like he's had like a slate breaking game or anything like that. I guess you said the same thing about Flowers, but I have a lot more McLaurin than I do Flowers. The receiver that I have the most money allocated towards is CeeDee Lamb. No shocker there. Then I get into Deontay Johnson. And again, I like to go hard with these game stacks. It worked well last week. We'll see how it goes this week. But nobody's playing Jameson Williams. I haven't heard anybody talking about Jameson Williams. He's 5,800. I have 20% of them. Lad McConkey is a value play that people will be on. A clever play that I think is or clever, whatever. Maybe it's a hipster thing for me. But Rashad Bateman and Trey Tucker as my spend downs are what I'm looking at mostly. A little bit of McLeod, a little bit of, as you mentioned, Demario Douglas and Jalen Polk. But mostly I would like to get to, I want to have exposure to that game every which way. And Rashad Bateman has been getting, maybe more work than people realize. This is a talented guy who hadn't really hit his stride because I think they wanted him to be a wide receiver 1 for a little bit. He's kind of found a nice role here. He had 8 targets last week. He's had 2 touchdowns in the last 3 games. 4,100. We don't have a ton of value. So that's sort of what I'm looking at as value. I like the Green Bay guys. It does feel hard when there's 4 wide receivers to choose from. And I think it's a good game stack, but I can't just prioritize them outside of a game stack. I couldn't find myself doing it. Other guys above 10% for me: Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins, Amon-Ra St. Brown, as I mentioned, Ray McLeod. That 41 to 4,400 range, I'm pretty heavy on. Jalen Tolbert. Jalen Tolbert might be. Is he going to be under-owned? I actually thought that he was going to be like 25% owned. I think he's a really good play. We've seen how much they look towards him anyway with Cooks on the field. Without Cooks, and then in a game where you're not going to be able to run the ball against Detroit, so you're going to throw it everywhere. I think you got to be playing some Tolbert. I think if you're getting thin, you want to play some Turpin as well. So those are sort of my guys. The general theme, as most of you are probably sensing with my lineups, is I am way overweight just those games. Got other guys I'd like to get to, like Drake London, and one guy I love who I don't have nearly enough of. I think so. Okay, here's my hot take for the week. Even though I'm not playing that much of it at the moment, my hot take is if Deshaun Watson's gonna win the slate, this is gonna be the one. You're playing Philly, who's a pass funnel defense. You have cheap receivers to go with them. You have a natural run back in Barkley, and Deshaun Watson has been horrible. But if he was horrible going into last week too, and everybody played him. Now when no one's going to do it in Philly, a 9.5-point dog, they're going to have to throw it 40 times. I think he could play badly and get there. So I guess that's my other hot take is the Watson to Cooper. You could throw Elijah Moore and Jerry Jeudy into the mix if you want to, David Njoku. But I like getting Philly through the air. So I'm gonna make some changes and probably get to the troll game of Deshaun Watson.
No, that definitely makes a lot of sense. I mean, especially, the game script situation also, before we get like too strayed, what kind of exposure are you getting on FanDuel to that late game? Like the Bengals Giants?
Forced in 10% Burrow stacks with and I think like 2 or 3% of Daniel Jones stacks, but a lot of Chase, a lot of Higgins, a lot of Slayton, a lot of Tracy. So they're spread throughout my lineups, and it's I would say that I'm like 15% probably on each of those guys. So pretty decent percentage considering the size of the slate.
Yeah, that's the thing. I just ran to the FanDuel thing, and I'm getting very, very little, and it kind of concerns me a little bit. I mean, I guess not. I guess it doesn't bother me that much. I mean, it's not like the Giants give up that much,
Yeah, their defense has actually been pretty good.
Yeah,
but does it matter with Burrow?
And I'll tell you with this though, I mean the Bengals defense is it just could be the worst, so
they've been so bad.
Yeah, so I don't know what to do with that one. But maybe I'll do some late swapping as it gets to the 4:00 games.
That's what I think is the right thing. Yeah.
Because I'm going to have a whole bunch of ownership of that Dallas stuff.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll pair a little bit back depending on how I'm doing, and push some of the back, some of the CeeDee Lamb back to Chase, or whatever.
Yeah.
Or whatever else, like Tolbert to the Ionescu or whatever his name is, that other Bengal guy.
Yeah.
If I need it, if I need the upside.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's totally worth it. And by the way, I think it's a good game anyway. I think if it was on this, I think you want to, in general, there's teams you just want to target games they're in, and the Bengals are one of those teams. You just want both sides of it almost every week. So I always want to try to be overweight that situation, even though the projections, partly why you're not getting them is they're expensive. And partly why they're expensive is because they keep scoring 5 touchdowns every game. You know what I mean? Basically. And that's why T. Higgins and Chase are so pricey. All right, let's talk about some tight ends here. I think this is an interesting conversation this week because it's going to be very condensed ownership. And outside, I like the Ferguson play, but I don't necessarily agree about the rest. Like the rest should be as high as it is. So what are you getting to tight end wise?
When I looked earlier, earlier in the week, I was expecting to get just like all of the Jake Ferguson. I can't imagine why it'd be any different. Let me just see. I'm looking at what I got here, and yeah, Jake Ferguson's the top guy I have. And then actually, Brock Bowers is not the second own guy. My second guy is actually Cade Otton from Tampa, which is I guess that's all right, I suppose. He's only 3,500, and then getting Zach Ertz from that Washington game. Boy, oh boy, Zach Ertz, he's like 50 now, isn't he? I mean, I don't know.
He's 1 million years old.
But I don't know. I'm getting it. I think it feels like all tight ends are 50 years old, though. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm going to be forcing in Hunter Henry, as I mentioned earlier, from the New England game. yeah, I mean, but Jake Ferguson, I mean, it's just part of that great game, and he's good. You know, I basically called him the wide receiver too.
Yeah.
But then again, like I said, Tolbert's
Totally.
been doing very, very well. So I don't know, but Jake Ferguson is certainly my top tight end.
Yeah, he's my top tight end as well. I don't love that I have him as my top tight end because I feel like it's a little bit funky. So what I did is to bring his ownership back, because I was getting him like 50%. What I did is I switched a lot of that or a good portion over that to Laporta, who's a little bit more expensive but going to be completely unowned. I have a ton of Trey McBride. Look, it's a rainy day, kind of ugly weather up in Green Bay. This feels like it could be a Trey McBride like 10 catch kind of a day. So I like the Trey McBride as the other spend up. And then look, the spend downs. I have Ertz as my highest owned of the spend downs. Again, partly it's because I have that game exposure, and I didn't want to play Cade Otton with the field. Although now my ownership has led me to end up getting near the field on Cade Otton, which I'm not entirely thrilled about.
Okay.
This year, New Orleans has given up points to the tight end. They never have in the past. And that game script is very up in the air for me. For what it's worth, I still kind of like New Orleans in that game. But it wouldn't surprise me if Tampa Bay won like 31-3.
Right.
Jatavian Sanders at 2,700, just because there is some places where I needed value, is another one that I went to. And my only other 10%er is, I don't love this, but I thought Okonkwo was a pivot off of Otton that I could talk myself into, especially since I'm playing Will Levis. So Okonkwo would be the other one, but he's not a fun roster either. You got to just kind of hope he gets in the end zone and maybe hope that 12 to 14 is good enough for him. Maybe he could squeak in the end zone twice. That's possible. I'm a little lower on that Atlanta game as a whole than maybe the field is, but we'll see. Carolina, Atlanta tend to play, especially when they play in Carolina, they tend to play sloggy kind of games. Then when they play in Atlanta, they always play these shootouts. So now the fact that it's in Carolina makes me want to go to makes me want to treat it like it's going to be a lower score. So those are the main ones for me. In terms of stacks, I'm curious what types of stacks you're getting or what type SaberSim is giving you.
I'm getting everything. I'm getting 3-man stacks. I'm getting 2-man stacks. And I'm not making any particular changes there.
Yeah, I did make some. Oh God, I have to relog in here again. And I'm still using the old SaberSim. I'm going to do some stuff with the new SaberSim. I just haven't had the time to really get savvy with it, so I'm still using the old one right here. But yeah, I'm looking at my FanDuel. Here's what I did I'll just show what I did for my stacks and tell me. Yeah, I don't think it's too crazy. I forced a few players in, and then I changed the stack exposures to make sure I had more actual correlation. I do think that is because it's people. It used to be the way everybody played. So playing like two receivers with no run back, people just didn't do it. It just didn't happen. Now everybody does it, and they almost never do the other. So I tried to force out the QB +1, +2, +3 as much as I could, and just make sure that at least the 60% of my lineups are going to have some sort of a run back, and just hope those games are the ones that shoot out, especially knowing the games that I'm targeting, which I really like for potential shootouts. So that's where this is sort of what I ended up with in terms of stack types. But you can see I forced in the extra run backs because they weren't giving them to me at all. I had like 70% QB +3 with no run back. And I'm just like, I don't know, man. In my head, I'm just like, how does that win?
Right.
How's that going to work? But I'm like,
they just do though. I mean, I don't know.
It happens. You're right. And it's for the lottery. So doing weird stuff makes some sense. But I just personally like the idea of a run back. And I think there's those two games that I'm heaviest on have huge potential for massive scoring. I also think there is a little bit of a risk. And if we look at it like this, Sheets, if they would have played 3 weeks ago, Baltimore and Washington, Baltimore would be like 12.5 point favorites. And it would be like a total of like 40. You know what I mean? But now we have the not just the narrative, but the fact that Washington's been the best offense in football. I'm going the other way. So I really hope Washington shows up today. I'm really going to need it. All right. I know that you don't have much things for defense in general, but I'm just looking here and this is FanDuel. Let me jump to DraftKings. Actually, on FanDuel, you can see what I got for defenses. Basically, this is mostly my exposure. It's heavy on the Patriots, but it's still only 25%. And it's just because they're 3,200 over there, and it's just significantly cheaper than everybody else. The Bucks would be my second favorite. My hand builds, the Bucks are the ones that I have the most. But And the New Orleans, of course, is the other one who I like to play against Baker.
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah,
the Bucks one. Excuse me, the Saints one. I think that's a little bit different. I think.
yeah, and I think it makes. I mean, look, they're basically the same price on DraftKings, and everyone is going to click the Arizona button. I'm sorry, the Tampa Bay button, not the New Orleans. So I kind of like doing that. I still do have Tampa Bay as my highest owned offense, but I'm going to spread out. Right now, it's too high. I have 35% of them on DraftKings. I don't want to be that high on the chalk defense, but they are cheap, and it is. I did find myself needing it to be cheap, and the ownership actually doesn't have them as high as I thought. I thought they were going to be like 20 plus, so maybe I will end up with 30% of them or so. After them, I have the Saints, then the Patriots in that order: Bucks, Saints, Patriots. Then I get the Broncos and Chargers, then Tennessee. I like getting some Cardinals exposure defensively, but those are sort of my main ones. What do you have the highest of your 20%ers?
Yeah, the Bucks. It's okay. I mean, again, the Rattlers are obviously, it's cheap, whatever, but I think the Bucks can be very aggressive here in that game. Denver's always, whatever, but I don't know how much the Chargers are going to be throwing there. And New England, that makes some sense. I got a feeling we're supposed to play like Philly against Cleveland.
Yeah, it's just hard to get to.
Yeah, I know. And again, defense, I really try not to put too much time into.
Yeah. I've talked myself into this Cleveland thing a little bit too much. I think I need
No, I disagree. I think you should stick with that, actually.
No, that's what I'm saying. I've talked about it too much for me not to commit to it a little bit harder than I am right now.
Oh,
I'm not where I want to be with the Cleveland stuff. But anyway, so I'm pretty excited to take that shot. And I guess, look, we're kind of moving through it faster because Rhodey's not here and everything today. But I would say that is my hot take of the week, is that the Cleveland stack wins somebody $1 million today. We'll see. It doesn't feel great with Watson, but what's crazy is, as bad as Watson has been, and we're playing all these other cheapo quarterbacks, as bad as he's been, he actually is averaging like a reasonable number of fantasy points for his price. And he's been terrible. And this is probably the most he'll have to throw the ball all season long, because they can stop the run in Philly. I'm gonna have to find a way to do it personally. That's just gonna have to be the way that it is, I guess. And you can play.
And I'm gonna go with my. I'm gonna stick with my hot take from earlier this week and say either New England or Tennessee wins the slate, with Will Levis or Drake May.
So we both like the cheap, funky, bad stacks.
And this is completely like outside of my normal skill set. So.
But one thing you can do with those things, especially as I'm hand building, what I like to do with those is, like, I can still play Henry and McLaurin from the Arizona game with that. You know what I mean? So I'm getting sort of a little mini stack of the game I really want. Or you could play CeeDee Lamb and one of the running backs, or Jameson Williams, or you could actually probably CeeDee Lamb and Amon-Ra St. Brown if you go with the cheap stacks. And that's something that's very appealing to me too. I really like that Dallas over game. And also I really like, I don't know why, but I have a feeling Cleveland and Philadelphia is really competitive today. I don't think Philadelphia just wins.
I'm kind of into that idea, actually.
Yeah, it just feels good. By the way, the bets have been on fire this year.
Really?
Yeah, I think I'm 13 out of my last 16 right now. But my edge score, shout out to Better Takes, has gone up from 54 to 58 for football.
That's awesome.
It's been basically like winning about 65% of the time, maybe a little closer to 70 now, actually. So it's been pretty solid. All right. So anything else we should touch on before we move on? I did mention the FanDuel things. This is sort of, guys, just giving you guys a little bit of my builds. I ended up with 3 men uniques because I ended up wanting to get a little bit more variance. And you can see I did end up with a lot of these, or that's the flagship, but because I did end up with a lot of the giant stuff, and I guess everybody's going to end up with that. And I do have a lot of late stuff. So there'll be a lot of late swapping for me today. Unfortunately, this is the 3rd week in a row, and I feel bad about it because I really want to do this 3 Eastern.
I know,
show.
Me too. I was about to say the same thing.
but if you can do it, I can jump on it. Maybe I just can't.
I don't know if I can do it. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm just like, it's always a tough day.
Yeah, it is. I know it's a little bit tricky, and it's always like a little too early to talk about the swaps when you do it at noon. But if I do it too late, then I'm not able to make the swaps myself. Personally, you're really good at that. I can't quite get it figured out, but. Anyhow,
well, again, like, just watch. Maybe we should just schedule it this way. We'll remember to do it. But actually, you know what I mean? I don't know the best way to handle it.
Yeah, and I remember to do it. The problem is I've had literally things come up every.
No.
I have to have a call with, anyways, a doctor call at 3 Eastern, which is everything's fine. It's just I need to follow up for my son, so I want to be on that call.
He's doing good.
He's doing great. Yeah, they just need to do the follow up, but I don't want to. If I'm going to do that at noon, I don't know how long it's going to go and how many questions. I just want to be there with him while he does it. So that's pretty much it. Let's see what else is going on. I think that's pretty much most of what I have. It feels like a smaller slate, maybe because I'm not playing that many different stacks, although I'm going to add the Cleveland one in. But yeah, I think that's sort of a good feel for what I've got. Anybody have any questions out there? Oh, here's one from K9. Who would you pair with Levis? I have it Ridley, Hopkins, then Okonkwo in that order. But I think there's some of those three. What do you think, Sheets?
Yeah. So what I'm doing with those is I'm playing some with both of them. Not the tight end. I'm playing some with both Ridley and Hopkins and some with one of each. I'm not getting too fancy with that. I'm not taking a big stand on one or the other.
Yeah. That makes sense. I think that if there's a lot of talk about how they need to get Ridley the ball more, so I think that sort of swayed me a little more towards Ridley than Hopkins. But there's also Levis seems to look for Hopkins, and they had a week off, and I really think that with that week off playing Indianapolis, I just think that it's good to be like 10% on that game on the Tennessee side, especially people are going to play Pollard. You play the passing game instead. I think it makes perfect sense. So I'm in on that. I wish we had Jonathan Taylor in that game on the other side because I don't really want to play Trey Sermon.
Yeah, he's out, right?
Yeah, Taylor's out. And Michael Pittman makes some adjustment because I had I was going to talk about AD Mitchell and all these other things, but Michael Pittman is active today. So
the Adonai Mitchell.
Yeah, I couldn't do it, and then also I wanted to play Alec Pierce and Josh Downs, and just couldn't find a way to do it. Although
you know what, you can't play everybody, I guess, huh?
No, you can, and this is the week I feel better about my exposures than usual because I have significant like 4 guys significantly above 30% on basically all of my positions except for quarterback and defense.
Now, by the way, I mean, like if you guys wanted to, take a shot and play my stupid Levis or New England's or whatever, you could always just play him in the early slate, and not take too much risk as far as that goes.
I like that idea actually. I think it makes a lot of sense, and because maybe they don't win the whole slate because the Dallas game goes too nuts and Dak has 37 and CD has 50 or something like that.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
But by the way, you could still win you could still get the 50 from CD, and maybe the 25 or if he can get there from Levis is good enough with the savings. It's just an interesting construction thing, and Levis is cheap enough to where I actually think I have more of Levis than I do Rattler, but I have Rattler in one of my big buy-ins, and I don't have Levis in one of my biggest buy-ins. I think I might consider either Watson or Levis instead of Rattler, just because I think the upside is so much higher than it is for Rattler. But I do think Rattler has an excellent chance at getting to like near 20 fantasy points, which is at 4K just gives you all the freedom in the world to do what you want elsewhere.
I am going to play the just so you guys know, I'm going to play the 1 p.m. slate. Just going to play it kind of straight. I'm not going to just do anything funny there. And I'm going to play the 4 o'clock. I'm going to play the showdown. And again, if I have time, I'll poke in for the showdown. And
yeah,
pretty much all I got.
Yeah, if I can pop back in, I definitely will. And in my afternoon, for what it's worth, I'm playing the afternoon slate just a little bit, not playing massive entries, but I did in my afternoon builds. Who did I play here? I'm trying to find it. There's my Deshaun Watson's. Let's see, where did I go? Sorry about this. All right, I'm just seeing what I had here. Oh, I went with the other side because you're going to have a smaller slate and everybody's going to play the Dak side. What about skipping the running backs from Dallas, from Detroit, playing Goff with Williams and St. Brown, and then or one of those two with Laporta, and then you run it back with CeeDee Lamb. That feels pretty good to me. Take a shot with Goff.
Basically, the lesson to be learned here is that if in fact Jameson Williams has a good day, Bobby's going to be happy.
If Jameson Williams has a good day, I'm always going to be happy because I'm always going to have at least double the field on him. If he was 20% owned, I'd have 40. I'm always on him. All right, man. Well, I think we're probably going to get out of here. Any final thoughts? You want to do the roadie impression because it worked out well for us last week?
Yeah, sure. So listen, make sure to hit the like and subscribe.